Good morning friends and family. Welcome to Coffee Conversations with Stephan. Baie welkom by Koffie Klets met Stephan. So this morning I want to continue in the vein of the conversation we've had in the past week on love and what it means to love and loving your brothers. And yesterday we looked at who is your brother. But I want to go one step further, because Jesus said in Matthew 19:19 to the rich young ruler, he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And then in Romans 13 verse 9, Paul carries on with this whole concept of the whole law is encapsulated in this, loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So I want to look at, because I've had some questions and people have asked me, so who is your neighbor? So before we do that, I would like to maybe look at this concept of loving yourselves. Okay, so the statement that Jesus makes is not to love ourselves more, and the command Paul is making is not to love ourselves more. It's not about that, but it's a recognition that most of us already look out for ourselves. We look after ourselves. This morning it's very cold in Oudtshoorn, so I dress warmly. I drink a warm cup of coffee, and which I hope you have at hand. And we know how to, look after ourselves. So that is, we love ourselves enough to feed and clothe ourselves. Okay, to keep a roof over our heads and to avoid being cheated or injured. So we look out for our own welfare. So in practice, we should love our neighbor at least that much. At least. Okay, so that's the benchmark. The way that we love ourselves is the way that we should at least love our neighbors. Okay. John 15:12, Jesus says, he also commands his disciples to love one another. We looked at that, and that is that agape love, again, that word, which signifies an action of love or active love that is unconditional, self-sacrificial, and for the good of others. Okay, this love is often more of a decision than an emotion. I've said that before. And author David Wells said that. He says, we cannot command feelings, but we can command an active determination of our will. So, looking at this whole thing, who is my neighbor then? And it's an interesting word, that the word neighbor in the Greek is Plesion, and it means those that are near. Anyone that is near. Okay. And it is anyone we encounter in our life who needs our help. And love is the inevitable response of the heart in which God's love has been poured out by the Holy Spirit. Remember, it's the Holy Spirit enabling us to love people, anybody. Love our brothers in the church and love our neighbors. So I want to say this. It's easy to love in an abstract way, okay? But Paul wants his readers, here in Romans chapter 13, verse 9, you can go read that, to love the people they actually meet day by day, with all their faults. Okay. Love is something that takes effect in the home. I said that already. It starts with us, the welfare, the way we look after, and then we start loving our neighbors. And then we love them in the marketplace, in the workshop, at school, in the village, wherever we meet someone. Okay, so these are very, very important things that we need to understand. God's love manifests itself through the loving acts of his children. And where it is absent, any claim to a family relationship is merely pretense. I can't call that family. Okay, so we need to look out for one another. And I want to say this, sometimes it's more difficult. It's easier to love God. It's easier let me say it like this. There is a sense in which love for our neighbor is a more obvious measure of where we stand with God than our love with God himself. We can easily convince others that we love God. It's easy. I love God. I love Jesus. But it is far more difficult to feign love for our neighbors. They are not fooled. In Afrikaans we say die liefde is blind, maar die bure nie. So love is blind, but the neighbors aren't. You know, they are not fooled as easily on that score. In other words, and neither are we. Thus, our love for others provides a helpful measure for our spiritual state. So it's not just about loving God, but it's also about loving our neighbor. Those that are near, those that God entrusts to us or maybe bring on our path. It's not the whole world, really. You can't save everybody, but those that are close by, those are your neighbors. And then yesterday we looked at brother. That is adelphos, of one womb. There's a unity in the faith. Okay, I hope you guys understand that. Bless you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.